Have you ever felt the pain of heartbreak before a relationship even started? Nothing was defined and nothing was official, but somehow your heart still took a hit. If this sounds familiar to you, then let's talk about how to stop breaking your own heart in 2026. Hi, guys. Now, let's talk about some ways we break our own heart, and then we'll get into how to stop doing that in 2026. One of the ways I've broken my own heart was by judging a situation based on the world I created in my imagination, as against reality. Romanticizing the idea of the person as against paying attention to their patterns and what those patterns reveal about their level of interest and readiness for a relationship. Secondly, I would assume what someone meant instead of asking for clarity. I would have whole conversations in my head with myself as against having actual, real, and honest conversations. Low key, I would avoid clarity because clarity felt too risky. Number three, I would ignore what was being obviously said and replace it with what I hoped it meant. So when someone told me, for example, I'm not ready, I'm not sure, or I'm not a gentleman, instead of believing them, I created a version of that narrative that matched what I hoped it meant. Number four, I made excuses for whole grown adults. I would come up with explanations for behaviors that didn't really need explaining because they were obvious to anyone who wanted to know the truth. I'm talking about softening red flags, spiritualizing their inconsistencies, and taking personal responsibility for that person's emotional growth. Number five, I would hide my interest and expect mind reading. So I would like them, but then act like an undercover agent whose mission was to make sure this guy can never detect through my actions that I'm interested. Wise, huh? Not so. Instead of expressing my interest, whether subtly or however I chose, I would work overtime to hide them and would just hope that they would just know. I stayed guarded like a ninja, yet expected to be pursued. Number six, I would let fear make decisions for me. And then I would allow fear to convince me that I was being wise. Yes. You know how we pretend like our fear of rejection, disappointment, and truly being seen is discernment. Number seven, I waited to be picked instead of allowing space for a healthy chase. Instead of creating space for someone to rise to the occasion and choose to match their interest with their pursuit, I would work overtime to be as invisible as I could. I would shrink back instead of being fully present in moments. And I would confuse being a passive person with being a patient person. Finally, the real heartbreak did not come from rejection at all. It actually came from self-sabotage. I mean, not giving myself a fair chance, not allowing anyone to truly get to know me, and not allowing myself to write the story, but giving fear the pen to script my life. Now, guys, if I sound a little stuffy from now, just forgive the voice. The flu decided it was a great time to just, come on over. So I had to pause real quick and then get back to doing this video. But you know what they say, the show must go on. So let's do a quick recap. So some of the ways that we break our own heart include: one, allowing your imagination to run ahead of reality. Two, assuming intentions instead of clarifying. Three, ignoring what is being very clearly communicated. And four, making up excuses for whole grown adults. Five, hiding your interests and then expecting mind reading. And six, letting fear make decisions for you. Seven, waiting to be picked instead of creating space for a healthy chase. And finally, number eight, mixing all of this together in one big melting pot of self sabotage. Now, if in looking back you realize that there are many ways that you have been breaking your own heart, I want to remind you that this is not about condemnation. So chill. This is about us finding clarity together. And as we find this clarity, let's now use it as a tool to help us avoid making these same mistakes in 2026. Now, let's get right into it. How do you avoid breaking your own heart in 2026? Number one, slow down. Slow the story down to the pace of reality. I know you have a creative and a wild imagination, but before you attach a meaning to anything, pause and ask yourself these questions. What is actually being said to me? What are their actions or their patterns teaching me? And what else is there for me to know? The truth is that God does not necessarily require us to predict the future, but He does expect us to be good stewards of the present. Number two, clarify before you assume. I once heard someone say that assumption is the lowest level of knowledge. And I've proven in my own life that that is so true. Where there is no clarity, there is no peace. So if you're feeling confused about a potential relationship or even a relationship that you've already entered into, it's your sign that you need to seek for clarity. Before assuming what is meant, simply ask, can you help me to understand what you mean by that? You get the point, right? Number three, please believe what you see and believe what you hear. You don't know them more than they know themselves, as much as you'd love to believe that. So believe what they tell you about themselves and allow their patterns to speak louder than their potential. Intentionally look for their consistency and not just chemistry. And to wrap this up, ask yourself honestly, is this relationship really aligned, or am I just hoping it will become aligned one day? You will most likely find wisdom from God in the patterns than in the drama. Number four, stop trying to play hero for a moment and stop trying to rescue everyone. It's okay to take someone at their word. So, for example, when they say, I'm not sure, I'm not ready, or I'm not that kind of person, believe them. Treat that as information and not as an opportunity to fix them or to prove otherwise. Number five, express your interest honestly. Now, I know this one might be a little controversial, especially because there's such a thin line between pursuing someone and simply expressing your interest. But however you choose to do this, remember, the goal is not to conceal the fact that you are interested and available. The goal is to create room for a healthy chase. Vulnerability doesn't weaken you. In fact, it exposes your value. So be honest. Don't try to be anything other than yourself. Relax. Number six, identify fear and address it before it gets the opportunity to sabotage you, because, honey, it will. So the next time you feel fear rising up, ask yourself the question, what am I really afraid of? What am I afraid of losing or feeling again? Finally, bring that fear to God, because fear left unchecked will quickly become self sabotage. Number seven, release any feeling of regret by practicing self compassion. Now, I know we've all had those moments of, why did I do that? Why did I even say that? Trust me, I can relate. But a little self compassion goes a long way. So the next time you feel a little uncomfortable about the way you handled something in the past, simply ask yourself the question, what is this mistake revealing about where I need to grow or heal? Remember, regret should be your teacher, not your judge. And most importantly, remember that God is able to redeem any mistake, any regret, much faster than shame ever will. And to wrap this up, stop just waiting to be picked. Remember, reciprocity can go a long way, and the goal is not to play impossible to get. Remember that. Instead of being passive, look out for the levels of effort. Watch for mutual curiosity. Is this person truly interested in getting to know me? And be responsive in the pursuit. Remember, love that is truly meant for you will not require for you to become invisible and disappear while you're waiting for it. A gentle reminder for you, sis, protecting your heart doesn't mean closing it to the world. And being open doesn't mean wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's really about learning to steward your heart well. And this looks like stewarding it with wisdom and with clarity. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it very useful, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know which of these you can relate to most and how you plan to safeguard against breaking your own heart in 2026, because we ain't doing that again. We ain't doing that again. Anyhow, I can't wait to see you in the next one. But until that time, have a great one. Love you loads. Bye.